So when her friends came to the door and said, "Can you come out to play?" It was wintertime, it was muddy, and there was snow on the ground. And she said, "I can't." And they looked down at her little cloth booties and said, "Why can't you come out to play?" And it was right after Christmas, and she said, "I can't come out to play because I got a brand new pair of cowboy boots. They're not broken in and they rub blisters on my feet. So my grandmother made these little booties for me." So her first lie had to do with shoes. A little bit later in life, like much later in life, I was a junior at Altus High School in southwest Oklahoma, and I was a cross-country and track athlete. On that particular day, we had a 5-way meet scheduled with a number of other high schools, and it was a miserable day. It was 38 degrees, windy, and raining sideways. Terrible day for a track meet, the kind of day where you wore your sweats right up to the start line and then took your sweats off and ran your race. One of the schools we were participating against was the Comanche High School from the Comanche Reservation northwest of Lawton. These guys showed up to the track meet and were running barefoot. And I thought, holy smokes, these guys are as hard as nails. I don't know if I want to run against somebody who's going to run an 800-meter race or a mile race barefoot. Well, as the race progressed, what we noticed was in between races, the boys from the Comanche High School were changing shoes. They were sharing off shoes between the runners. And they had 5 or 6 pairs of track shoes, and so the ones who could fit the shoes were wearing those shoes. When my race that day, the 800 started, the Comanche runners were running barefoot, and they did not do well. My mom came to almost all my track meets, but my dad often didn't because of his Air Force duties. They precluded him from attending. But after the track meet, my mother said, "I need you to come with me." As the Comanche runners were getting back in their van to go back to the reservation, my mom called her coach aside and said, "I know this doesn't solve the whole problem, but I wanted to write you a check for $150 so that you can buy some more track shoes for your runners." And we were not wealthy people, but she felt obligated to do that, to recognize the spirit of those runners. So I began to understand that when my mom said learn good, she wasn't talking about learning well and taking advantage of your education opportunities. She was talking about learning to do good, learning to make a difference in the world, learning to do things that mattered to other people. And she carried through that tradition in her volunteer work and then her paid work with the local Red Cross chapters in New Mexico and then with the American Red Cross in California. She was truly doing good. I'd like to shift the focus of my remarks here for just a moment and talk about courage. And I'll be brief here, not Choctaw brief, but I'll be brief here. I think it took courage to raise a family in the Air Force with a husband who was deployed on missions almost all the time. That's how I ended up in the Army. I got mad at my dad for being gone, and I thought, I'll never join the Air Force because you're gone too much. So I joined the Army. So she did successfully raise that family, and after a few fits and starts, I think most of us got launched pretty well. So I think Mom was proud of that. That took courage. When my dad, her husband, died after a marriage of 50 plus years, Verona reinvented her life, and that took a lot of courage. That's why she moved down to Mary's Woods from Longview as part of that process of reinventing her life. Later, after suffering 2 really serious spinal infections in 2019 and 2020, everyone in our family got a chance to see courage in action. Because in spite of her pain, in spite of her decreasing mobility and decreasing independence, she continued to invest herself in her family, in the lives of this community, and the lives of the people that were dear to her. And that takes courage. Not to just get beaten up and ground down by the circumstances of life. And then finally, and truly, this is a blessing. I think our society doesn't talk enough about dying, but on the last day of her life, Mom showed us the courage of what it takes to die well. I think on the last day of her life, she probably met in person with 30 or 35 different people. For a while in her apartment, I felt like the bouncer outside a busy nightclub. Okay, you guys are done. Your 5 minutes are up. Go to the back of the line. Next shift, come on in. And she was sharing her love, her experience, her perspective, her wisdom with each and every person as if they were the only person she was going to see that day. And that I think took a lot of courage. And then finally, this is very personal for me, but my sister was at work up in Yakima in her pathology practice, but on that Monday, she left work, dropped off her cat at the park and ride with her husband Fred, came down here, and spent 45 minutes with Mom in just a good, thoughtful, interesting, and in some cases funny, humorous conversation. And then she said, "I'm tired. I think I want to go to the bathroom now." And 10 minutes later, she was gone. She had made her final journey. It was very, very peaceful. The best analogy that I can tell you, that it was like if you waded out into a stream and took a piece of wood, it didn't just throw it in the water, but just set it in the water, and the wood just drifted down the stream silently, peacefully. To me, that's what her final journey felt like. So I think for me, that final day was a gift. It was a masterpiece. It was breathtaking, and it was an example of a good death. I'm almost done here. Bear with me. There are a lot of people in our society today that talk about legacy. Politicians talk about it. Business leaders talk about it. And a lot of times it's tied to accomplishments and money and things they did. And I think people and the name of this poem is called Final Vision. Life is the unexpected flash of a firefly in the night. It is the cloud of an elk's breath in the brittle morning cold of a mountain meadow. It is the tiny shadow of an unseen animal racing across the grass to lose itself in the setting sun. Life vanishes like the wolf who wishes to remain unseen and disappears in absolute silence. This is the mystery of creation, that life is fragile and fleeting, yet, when well lived, displays profound strength and meaning across many generations. So thank you so much for allowing me to share my ideas and impressions. I don't think I talked for quite 45 minutes. Apologize for that. And I will be followed by my sister, Dr. Sheila Lynam. Thank you.
And in my mother's spirit of humor, I only have a few words to say. Dear friends, loved ones, thank you for being here with us today. thanks to everyone who's joined us remotely as well. We're here as one big extended family. My mother loved each one of you deeply, and so I welcome you to my extended family. We're here to celebrate a life well lived. I believe that everyone has at least one unique gift. You've heard of several amazing gifts that my mother had: quiet strength, courage, and I think most of all, the ability to love. She loved with her whole heart. She loved others through service to them. She even loved with her pocketbook. She could dispense tough love when that was required, and she could even love those difficult people that are just hard to be around. Mom could love those people, and they would feel and respond her love. She loved with grace and sensitivity and humor. There's so much more that I could say. I think much of it has already been said, and I want to hear from some of you who knew my mother and had experiences with her. As I step down from the podium, I'd like for everybody to reflect on the way Ona loved them and the way that they loved Ona. As you take your storyteller book and your rose when you leave, my request of you is that you take that love out of this sanctuary with you and share it with other people in your life. The ones you're related to, the ones that are your family by choice, and even the ones that are a little bit difficult to love. Thank you.
Oxygen. Good. I'm Eric Lynam, Verona's youngest, and at 61 years old, I can't say that counts for very much anymore. Like Sheila and Kurt, I really want to thank you all for being here, all of you here in person, and those hopefully here on the video stream as well. These goodbyes are hard, and I know that there are too many of them around here, but it's okay to smile and even laugh today because, Verona, even as hard as things got for her, as Kurt so eloquently told us, she smiled easily and she looked for the joy and the goodness in every moment until the very end. So anyway, I really wanted, I was going to tell a couple of jokes and stuff like that, but I really want you all to have your time to speak as well. So I think I'll sort of go straight into my kind of main bit here. And starting with showing you this book, and I know you can't see it from where you are, but there's copies of it in the back, as Kurt mentioned. It's the book that she wrote. It's The Storyteller, Weaving Tales of the Past. And as he invited, please take a copy with you if you'd like to read some of her stories. But what I wanted to point out about it was this figure on the front. It's a Southwest clay figurine of a storyteller. And I don't know, I mean, not everybody knows about that, but in the Southwest, it's a pretty strong tradition. And as Kurt mentioned, in the time before the written word, it's how the stories got passed from one person to another. And so what's depicted is this clay woman, maybe a mother, maybe a grandmother, with all the children in her lap, telling the stories of their family and their people. And that's who Verona was. And I mean, she said it right on the title. I mean, that's how she saw herself. And so in that regard, I'd like to read a story that I wrote for her, I guess more or less with this moment in mind. And it's called Red Clay Woman. We live in a time of abbreviated communication, sound bites, emojis. When people judge our thoughts on their conciseness and their brevity, the core message, the bottom line. Well, my mama taught me better. Let me tell you her story. Once there was a girl who was made of red clay, and her spirit was the light of a rainbow. This girl was not born to a red clay family. No, God had painted her just as white as a porcelain china doll, as white as the salt that her people were made from. This little girl loved to run in her bare feet over the red clay of their dusty land and through the orchards of fruit that her uncle had planted. She had no sisters, but she loved to play with her cousin, Nell. Sometimes they would dress up her old yellow tomcat in a doll's dress and a little bonnet and push him around in the old baby buggy, their pride and joy, or bury him in a boot box and play funeral, and then dig him up and eulogize him with tales of his fine tomcat life, and then dig him back up and praise his resurrection. They didn't have much, but they had each other. As she grew, this red clay girl dreamed of more than dusty days and clabber milk sunsets. And so she worked hard, and she learned good, just the way her grandmother had told her, so she could make something of herself. And so she did. Along the way, she found the sisters that she had missed as a child. Sisters of the heart, sisters of and for life. And then one day, barely more than a girl herself, she met a fellow who was barely more than a boy, a young man who dreamt of flying, named Ed. Eagle watches over. He would watch over her for all his days. He swept her up, and together they flew right out of that old dust bowl. But you know, no matter how far they went, that dust never really washed away, for he was a son of the red clay people. Together they flew away, and they lived amongst genteel southern folk and fine accented people in the land of kings and queens. They saw the world from way down under and high above their humble beginnings. Over time, they drew a crooked line from west to east and from east to west again across the land. And along the way, they raised a family of their own. The first, he was a wolf, quick and clever. He is the lance and the shield of our people. The second, she was a healer. Horses whisper to her, and she rides on the wind. And the last, he loved to ramble, and he came and he went like a summer storm. And one by one, she wove the stories of her life into colorful yarns, and those yarns into a fabric. She lovingly stitched that fabric into a beautiful rainbow quilt. Fearlessly, lovingly, she told her stories to anyone who would listen, with pride, but without prejudice. No stranger too strange. Nothing too personal for the telling, if it suited her moment. You could see it, how the light danced in her eyes at the start of a new story, no matter how many times you'd heard it before. This red clay woman shaped into the storyteller. I believe that to hear a story told well and fully, one that evolves and matures over many tellings, it's a good tradition. So never let anybody tell you too many words. Sometimes you need the words, all of them, to tell your story right. At least that's what my mama taught me. So now I think is a good time to invite all of you who want to say something to please come up and share your stories. I think we have about 25 minutes left, something like that. So please just keep it kind of brief and give us about 10 minutes at the end, so about 15 minutes for stories. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric and Sheila. Well said. Well said. Chukma. Anyone who would like to speak is welcome. Thomas went out to get Kristen because I think Kristen wants to say something. But please, if you'd like to come up and share a story or an idea, please feel free to do that.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
I'm Kristen. I'm one of Ona's granddaughters. This is...
Clara.
What did you want to say about Ona?
Ona gave me her doll, me and her monkey George.
Ona gave Clara one of her baby dolls and her monkey George cat, and she plays with it often. And Clara and Ona had a very special relationship, and it was very sweet, right? You got so
Yeah.
much time with Ona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You want to stand next to Daddy Kurt? Yeah, I'm going to talk up here for a little bit. So I was thinking about what to share here, and it's kind of a remarkable thing in life to know and be known so well by one person. And Ona just did that so well. She saw every person. She also would ask the tough questions, like Aunt Sheila was saying. She would, if you're talking about one of your life decisions or something that a decision you had made or whatever, she would just say the one thing everyone else was thinking, and you're like, oh, okay. But she would ask that question one time and just really get into it, and then she would move on. And she just had this way of like making you step up and rise to the occasion while still kind of finding yourself and being who you are. And it was such a beautiful thing, a gift that she gave us, and a skill she had. And I remember when we were talking about, as she had made the decision to go to hospice, and which I was so happy that she did, for herself. That's one thing. She was just so independent and wanted everything on her timing, and that was of her own information and her own decision. And when she decided to go on hospice, we were kind of talking about this, and she said, I don't want a sad funeral or anything, but I want the theme to be, then there was that time Ona did whatever. And so we were talking about, this was, 5 years ago, this was pre-Clara and pre-COVID, and we were having 4th of July at my parents' house, and I had been on a business trip up in Washington, and so on the way home, I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick up some of those cool fireworks they sell in Washington, because, we can't do those here in Oregon. So I got some fireworks, and we were at my parents' house and sitting outside, and I let off like the last one in the middle of the cul-de-sac, and it fell over as I was lighting it, and it shot right out towards Ona. It was popping up under her seat, and she jumped up, and it was a little scary, but at the end she was joking around that then there was that one time we almost blew up Granny. That was a joke. So we didn't do those fireworks anymore, but she was just one of my people, and I miss her so much. I'm so grateful that as an adult I had so much time to get to know her, and that she got to know all of us. I think every single one of us in our family, she probably incented in one way or another with a school program we were in or job training or something. She just had a way of finding what you were passionate about and figuring out how she could support you. And in that way that she invested in you, it allowed her to stay connected to you. And I remember in college, she would said, if you kept a B average, I would send you a check for this. And I was like, sweet, that's a sweet deal. But it meant that every month when I got that check, I thought of Ona and I called her or I wrote her back. And it was just a way to stay connected. And it was so special. And the last day I was as my dad said, it was just such an honor to be with her there, and many of you who came and visited and talked. And there was one part in the afternoon where I was just sitting there on the bed alone with her, holding her hand, and she kept kind of going in and out, as she called it, and she kept saying she was just afraid to fall. And I said, we just want you to fly, just like you wanted all of us to fly and thrive. And she loved stories, as we know, and I said, do you want me to play one of Clara's stories that I sometimes play for her when she's, having a hard time sleeping? And she said, sure. So I gave her a couple options, and she picked Harold and the Purple Crayon to listen to. And even though her eyes were closed and, she was just laying there so peacefully, she was hearing the story and laughing and giggling, and that was just such her spirit, of being fun, just fun loving and connecting with people. And that was such a gift to be there with her in that time. And also just a gift to have someone leave this earth and leave this time with us, but have nothing unsaid. She knew everything that I wanted her to know, and I knew everything she wanted me to know, and I know that was true for many of you as well. And I just don't know how she had the energy to connect with everybody on such a personal level. It was such a gift to all of us. So we miss her so much, but we see her in so many places, and we have all seen so many rainbows. And Clara will often, when she's just playing, if she picks up the phone, I'll say, who is it? And she says, it's Ona. And so I know that just because she's not here with us anymore, she's always going to be with us. So thank you for being here and for caring for her so much, especially in the time that she had at Mary's Woods. She just loved it, Half the time you couldn't even reach her because she was out gallivanting around doing who knows what. And I loved that. I loved that she had community and such strong friendships, and people who were always, especially when COVID happened, to check on her and be here with her and for her and her with you. So thank you so much. If anybody else wants to come up and please share a story or anything that comes to your mind. Clara, here you go.
Hello, I'm Magnus Welsh, and I'm one of Verona's Sisters of the Heart. I'm a Gamma Phi Beta, and Jenny Hammond's here with us today, and there's several other Gamma Phi Betas who are watching from around the country. Verona was just one of the most special people in my life. I met her, I met her at conventions, but the first time I really got to work with her when we were both on the foundation board together. And she was always a trailblazer. One of the things, this was in the late 90s and early 2000s, was about having more governance in nonprofit organizations. So she started the governance committee and became the first governance chair of the foundation. And she, well, like everything else she did it with such precision and wonder and beauty. And she was so much fun. And when our times were cycling off of the board, and she was the first to go, she decided that she didn't want us to drift apart. So one day we were, after a meeting, we were all talking, and she decided that we should travel together and that we were going to become the bunnies. There were 5 of us that were going to become the bunnies, and she got the name because we were like the Energizer Bunny in the commercial. And so she gave so much, both financially and with her heart and her hard work to the foundation and to many women and students around the world. She started a scholarship fund that helped young women from her chapter, and she was honored by the foundation as the Philanthropist of the Year, which is an honor that's given not for what you do for the Gamma Phi Beta, but for what you do outside in the world. And of course, her work and her many other organizations that she supported fit that perfectly. So we were very pleased to honor her in that way. And it's just always so much fun to be with her. One of our dearest Gamma Phis said she was the funniest person that she ever knew because she was always making us laugh and just bringing light and love to whatever group she was in. So we miss her, but we see her on every rainbow, and we know that she loved us and that her love will carry on because of the women for generations to come who will receive those scholarships that she endowed. So just to know that she's going to be with us forever and that she's been helping people forever is so much of what Verona was about. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Connie, and I'm one of Verona's nieces. This is kind of a theme, so I'm just continuing with it. The last few years, I have a younger sister who's dealt with a lot of physical issues and has had some mental health issues as well. And even when Aunt Verona was at the point where she was in a great deal of pain, she still made a point of calling every few months, and she would check to see how things were going. She'd ask for me to help her understand what she had heard about or heard from my sister. She would express her condolences. And then she would ask a lot of questions about the family. And sort of as it's already been expressed, she would find that area of interest. We'd continue with the conversation. When she'd get off the phone, I'd tell my husband that I spoke with her. He'd say, well, did you ask her this? And did you ask her that? She'd tell you about this. And I'd realize that she was there to listen. She wasn't there to have me ask her questions. And it was pretty remarkable. So I will miss her as well.
I don't know if I have to be close to the mic, but because I'm a Texan, I'm Irish, I'm blunt, and I had a brother who said, she won't work and I can't shoot her. But if he went up the tree, I went higher. Because anything he could do, I could do, right? And I really feel that's the kind of person that Verona was, and remained so because she was true to herself. And even though she was very bright, and I have a master's degree when I was 24, I've been around the world twice on borrowed money. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. We shared uniqueness somehow, I think, through an attitude of self-confidence. And since I'm 93 years old right now, I wonder where my confidence came from. Not because my big brother Mike could do it, I could do it. But I wonder what fostered in Verona the quieter confidence as she became a mother, a widow, and moved to this institution and made the type of friends she did in the short time you were privileged to know her. And without a sisterhood called PEO, a philanthropic educational organization that began in 1863 educating women, I would never have met Verona. And she never bragged about her brains. She did tell of the experience when she was with the Red Cross in San Francisco, and that thing fell, that bridge fell, and the cars, I don't know what, everybody's shaking their head, so you know what I'm talking about. But when she gave that program of not saying, "Oh, God save me," but that she was leaving the office and just the phone rang, about 4 or 5, you probably heard it, some of you are shaking your heads, that had she not gone back and answered that phone, the handling of that accident when the thing collapsed would not have been administered, in a sense, through our friend Leona. And I feel like wherever she was, she rose to the call. Whatever the call was, like my dad, an Irishman, an orphan in Ireland, an orphan in Mount Vernon, joining the World War I, marching through the Arc de Triomphe with an 8th grade education, and in Wichita County, right by where Leona's family in Oklahoma, I don't quite know where that is, but that's what bonded us. We were both sort of out of the same uniqueness of and respecting the stories that had brought us into the world. My dad died as a men's Bible class teacher in the old men's Bible class, and we laugh over that. But wherever she was, even as a woman, she commandeered respect. Whatever theater she was in, as a wife, a mother, a widow, and then coming out here, I don't quite know, except her family, why she came out here. But her quietness was her strength, and I'm not always quiet. And I talk too much, so I'm going to end this unprepared, but except for this sisterhood and the privilege of going to see her when she was ill and seeing how she made wherever she was a home for her type of personality. She could fit in anywhere. And I wish I'd known her better, and I know she's in God's hands right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that so many of you could join us today. There's this concept that I'm sure a lot of us know about called the invisible hand that guides the ebbs and flows of society. And I think Ona encompassed that with all of us, helping us guide our big life decisions, either as her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and even just all of her friends. And even though she's not here with us as her person isn't here with us, her spirit always will be. So I'd like to invite you all, every time you see a rainbow and you see the arch in that rainbow, know that that's her smiling. It's the curvature of her smile looking down at you to be with you forever. So thank you all for being here today. We all appreciate it.
So we're about to wind up our time here together today. I wanted to share a funny story and then something that just seemed so perfect. So the funny story was, Mom and I did some traveling together, and she and Dad lived in England when Kurt and I were born, and we thought it would be fun for Mom and I to go back to England and she could show me some of the sights, and she decided she wanted that to be a theater tour, so she arranged for us to see like 6 plays in 7 days, and we went to Stonehenge. It was just an absolutely wonderful trip. But the first day was pretty incredible. So we had been on the plane for some 20 hours with the little kid kicking the seat behind us the whole time, no sleep at all. We got to London, got to our hotel. It was going to be about 8 hours before the first play that we were to see. And I said, so Mom, how about if we take a quick little nap? And she was just, nap? We're in London, we can't take a nap. Like, okay. So we took the tube and we went far away from our hotel to the neighborhood where the play was going to be, and kind of walked around to find out where the tube station was so we could look like we know what we're doing at night when we leave the play and we're walking through this neighborhood, because you know how neighborhoods can change after dark sometime. So we found a restaurant, we had some nice fish and chips, we went to see the play. It was Chicago, it was amazing, and we got out of the play and started walking towards the tube station. Well, we get there, and there was a sign saying that the tube station was closed because there had been an accident on the track. So here we are now about 36 hours with no sleep, and she looked at me with panic in her eyes, and she was almost crying. I was like, what do we do? There were 2 ladies walking in front of us with babies in strollers who were actually going to get on the subway at that station. I said, we're going to follow them. So we followed them about 4 blocks, and they went to the next tube station. We got back to our hotel. Everything was fine. So it was a great trip. But she just had this zest for life, and she loved to travel. The other story is, it's a little bit bittersweet. So the day Mom passed away, Kurt and I were going through things in her apartment, looking for the things that were important, any business that was unfinished that we needed to take care of. And those of you who know my mother knew that she had a master's degree, and she really put it to work well. She was very, very organized. So I was going through her file drawers, and I found a file for unfinished business. And when I pulled it open, it was empty. So with that, would you all like to both come up too? Any closing words?
We have a few more things. Yep.
Okay.
So we're going to close the ceremony with 2 additional features. The first is an interview that my wife Bev conducted with my mom the day before she passed away and made her final journey. And it's a story my mother told about driving through a rainbow. And this is told in her own words. And keep in mind, this is less than 24 hours before she passed.
Yeah, well, just driving Highway 84 to Baker City, and it had been raining, and the sun would come out, and I saw beautiful rainbows all along the way, and suddenly that mountain from Pendleton down to LaGrande, there's this beautiful rainbow, and I know that this could have only lasted just a moment, or I would have wrecked the car, but the inside of that Buick Reatta was totally filled with the smallest of particles of every color in the world. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just filled, the car was filled, I was filled, and I and the rainbow were one. Mm-hmm. It was totally awesome. Mm-hmm. And it was the most peace, talk about peace and contentment. I didn't want to come back, but I knew I had to. And so I went on my way. I called and told Ed, and somehow or other he couldn't get near as excited about it as I was. But you had, I mean, really, to be in a rainbow and the rainbow be in you. I was just filled with it. It was the most wonderful feeling in this entire world. And that's when I decided I needed to be a rainbow.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Just the particles, the colored particles were just absolutely minute.
So I wanted to remind you, this song that we're about to play is the final event of today's celebration ceremony. Wanted to remind you that after the song, you're welcome to come up and take a rose with you, and we would be honored if you would do that. There is a theme going on here, so that theme is continued in this song by Brother Is.
Try and guess, but don't shout it out. On behalf of Verona and all of her family, we want to thank each of you for the friendship and the support you've shown her, especially over these last few years. I hope you know you meant a great deal to her. She talked often when we were on the phone together. She would talk often about all of her friends here and the many things you would do together. There was always something good to look forward to here at Mary's Woods. So go enjoy, knowing that she's at peace. Thank you. Thank you very much. Achuk Mafena, our storyteller. Achuk Mafena, Wahoyo Lukfi Huma, Red Clay Woman. Achuk Mafena, Verona. It's good. It's good.
Nicely done, brother. Well, thank you again for joining us. That concludes our ceremony today. And please feel free to look at the display items back there. And if you haven't signed the guest book, please feel free to do that. Thank you again for investing your time here with us today. We appreciate it.
I think it might be nice to at least invite the bunnies to join us this evening.
remember when my parents were getting, he had his money in, feeding children. It was back in the 70s, they were feeding 12, 13% interest.
It's about time, right? At 8 and they're calling 5 and 4, so they're going to say that it's a lot.
And then my mom saw that, interest rates went from 15% down to, she keeps seeing the monthly income go down, yet the cost of everything keeps going up, and it's like, she didn't want to put it in stocks or anything, she didn't know anything about that. She wanted to risk the losing it.
Our acquaintances that never just don't get along. I think that's one thing she fostered is the love. And one thing she put in her trust is the explicit directions that the 3 siblings need to be together because anything wrong, she's going to so much before anybody knows me. And I said, that's genius. I mean,
she told us she did that. She told us.
Making sure everything's taken care of.
Did you decide where to go? Oh, man, I don't know. I called Sheila, so we probably just go down to that Manzanito or whatever that. Yeah, one of those 2 restaurants in the parking garage. We know how to get there. As far as any other place, I don't know.
I hear you have new plants.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Right, so we go in for Elcina, for Judy, for Linda Johnson. The one I already got.
I've always been a dog.
I say to neighbor, she said, I used to tell her, well,
My neck would break out and sneeze sometimes.
Eric was like, I'm not really sure we should.
And then Sheila got gizmo to the dog. And so I was a dog person. And then we got Gilligan. He came up when I was horse was a little kid before the kid. And I tried to give away the little runner, but she was like, oh boy, I guess we got a kid. And so we went and got a litter box and got stuck for him. And I realized, it's like, she's not a litter. Then after that, it's like,